my professor was like, I don't want you to personify the fruit. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, you tell me that you don't want me to do something, and then I'm going to do the thing.
That's
and
only going to give you hunger.
That gives me hunger.
Hey, did I do that? Is the name of the show that you're listening to. And it's a podcast about graphic design and mistakes and how the two they got married. They're in love. And we all are at their wedding, which I guess is this. It's very disappointing. I'm gonna throw the bouquet over my shoulder to you. That's because I am the host and my name is Sean Schumacher. Maybe I already said that part. Boy, this is a messier intro than these ordinarily are. And that's a pretty low bar when you're as few episodes in as I am, however many that is. Today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. My friend, my colleague, my boss in some ways, my thesis advisor several hundred years ago. Here at Portland State University, she helps to run the School of Art and Design as the associate director. It is Kate Bingaman-Burt.
Thank you, Sean.
Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you for being here.
Of course. I feel honored to be here.
Well, I think it's a good way to kind of kick things off, because it, like, a lot of this show is about, like, you know, kind of where we started, and meeting you, like, you were the first design person I knew in Portland by a mile. You are not from Portland, though, originally.
No, I am not. I am from the Midwest.
The Midwest.
Yeah, no, I was born in Wisconsin. My first teaching job outside of grad school was at Mississippi State University, 2004, 2008, go Dogs. But
it's not an inspiring rallying cry. Hey, go, Shoe Dogs, go.
Go Dogs.
Get out of here.
Bully the Bulldog was the mascot for, I know.
Was it an actual bulldog wearing like a Letterman jacket?
They have a very deep love for the Bully the Bulldog family at Mississippi State. There are generations of bullies.
This is a bulldog breeding program that they're running? Oh, no.
I'm not even kidding you. Like, there's been many bullies, and they're all related. So Bully comes out at the beginning of football season. Bully, yeah, but football's big.
How do they? I assume the bullies retire at some point and have to be replaced.
I think they die, and then they.
But is there just like a period where? I mean, every dog that I know that gets really old, they're very slow.
I mean, I think they get retired, and then
chill.
then their offspring like takes over.
But I love the idea of we're opening the football game and everyone runs out,
and then there's like this like geriatric little puppy. It's like, I gotta do this again.
Oh man, I'm so sick of this.
Yeah, so that's 4 years in the South. But I mean, where I went
I'm learning things from this already.
And I've known you for like half of your life, I would say, Sean. but I mean, where I went to college at, though, I mean, it's debatable with Missouri.
Yeah.
Because like there's parts of Missouri feels like it could be multiple regions, honestly.
Yeah.
Like where I grew up in central Missouri, where I feel like everyone very much was like, oh, this is not the South. But then I went to school at College of the Ozarks, which sounds very Southern when you say College of the Ozarks. And it was Southern Missouri. It was Branson, Missouri. And it's like everyone, there was like a heavier accent that happened down in the South, like Southern Missouri.
Yeah.
There's definitely more of a twang that was non-existent in central Missouri. So yeah. And it's weird. Missouri is a weird space. It's a very weird place, but that's where I've spent so far. I mean, I'm starting my 14th year in Portland.
Have you reached the point where like you've been a designer for half your life?
The very first thing that I designed, well, we could go way back.
I'm happy to go as far back as you want.
Okay, so my very first business.
Oh no.
context.
Okay.
I feel very fortunate to have grown up with a family who supported my entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah.
My mom and dad, all like me growing up for as long as I can remember until I graduated high school. That's when they did their kind of career shift. They were weavers. They were self-employed weavers. And so like I grew
Yeah.
up like the family business was making things, selling things, going to street fairs, going to, galleries, just like it was like that was the business. Like I would like wind yarn and get paid like 5 cents for each skein that I would wind. Like and so it's
Sounds
also
like you're working in the 19th century.
I know, but it was also like I was very like I would just sit there and I would watch this like stack of nickels grow, and
Yeah.
I was very motivated by that. And I know that I was just like I gotta.
Again.
Yeah, I know. But when I was 11, and I would say this is probably the first thing that I designed. Like I wanted to. We had two. So the town I grew up in had 600 people. Somehow supported two flower shops. Don't know how. But I had two flower shops. So that was like the place where you could like get little gift items and things like this. And I developed a line of pins that also back up a little bit. My family was a big catalog family.
Oh,
Like
sure.
this was to give a time frame. So this was probably mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
So pre-internet, catalogs were definitely for me, like as someone who was just like, I loved catalogs. I loved magazines. My grandma who lived in Wisconsin would like send us boxes of Vanity Fairs, People magazines, and her catalogs, and like getting
Wow.
we would probably get boxes 2 times a month for my grandma, and that was like my like gateway to the world basically. And so I had all of this like visual ephemera that I cherished. 100. I mean, I just would keep all the catalogs, and also back up. Another thing that I designed earlier was like I've always loved books and things and just visual everything. Although I didn't really like I wasn't like I'm going to be a graphic designer. But I made my own library, even though we lived at the end of a gravel road. It wasn't like I was going to have friends over to like check out books, but I wanted to like organize everything. And so the catalogs and the magazines like very much didn't get thrown away. Like they did not get recycled. They got
a pattern that has continued unto today.
Continued onto this day.
Well, no, you were actually cleaning a lot of stuff out today.
I have 2 modes. I either keep everything or I throw everything away. And that last mode is very dangerous. I've thrown away a lot of really good things. But I started kind of like, just as a kid does, like cutting things out of catalogs, cutting things out of magazines. And then because my mom just had like kind of all these different like making tools around, I started mounting the clipped out images from catalogs and magazines onto foam core. And then I would take, again, my mom just happened to have a gold edged like marker, and I would like gild the corners. And then I asked my mom, I was like, hey, can I buy some pin backs and some glue? And I like made these like fold over display cards. And then my dad took me to the like, it wasn't a Home Depot, it was whatever the lumber store. And I got two like shutters, window shutters, and I spray painted those. And that's how I hung the pins that I sold.
Oh my gosh, you had a display.
I created a display. And then I went to the 2 flower shops and I was like, can you sell these for me? Can I sell them here? And they did. And I sold them for, each one was like I think $250.
Wow.
And I would like restock and like people would buy them. The copyright is just out of this. Like you don't even want to think about that. But
I
like,
mean, it's probably about as fair use as like an issue of Crap Hound.
Exactly.
It's all kind
But
of the same.
it was again at that moment though, that was like really, I feel like that my desire to kind of like that entrepreneurialism bug really bit me hard then, because I was like, oh my goodness, like I just made this thing basically from something that, I was not going to use anymore. Or I was going to throw away, and people are buying it. Like that was like a really exciting thing for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, you look at it now and it's just like, this is kind of crappy, but like I was 12 and I think my mom even still has some of them, you know, like it's ridiculous. But that I feel like is probably the first thing that I ever designed.
Wow.
Um,
Well, and that it was a thing that you like actually properly turned into a business.
I did.
I think
I
is
did.
the other part of the Kate spirit.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's the thing too, where it's like, I know there's this like meme or something like, why do you always have to monetize your hobbies? But like, that's
a meme directed specifically at you.
That's very much where it's like, I'm always kind of like, oh, well, maybe I can't just do this to enjoy it. how do I build a business plan out of it and get it out to people and to the public? But that was my first attempt at it.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very fortunate that my mom and dad like saw that I wanted to do that and weren't like, oh, that's dumb. You're not going to do that. But like, hey, yeah, we'll hop into the truck, Katie, and we'll take you to the lumber store and get you your window shutters that you want as a display item, and not be like, do you think that's a really great idea? Do you want to do that? And yeah, sure. Well, here's a couple bucks for some gold spray paint. And you can just, because I mean, that's also something talking about Kate DNA.
Yeah.
Like gold, like that started very young too.
We were talking about before we started recording that there are essentially like you can excavate like down into from current Kate down into these previous Kates, and little parts and pieces are still there.
There's definitely a very strong through line for all of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff, you know, that you can kind of excavate from that DNA, you know, it's like, oh, I would never do that anymore. But like, there's definitely, there's things that I keep on doing, and I still like it.
You grew up in a family of artists.
Yeah.
Your grandmother was also a illustrator, a book illustrator.
Yeah. I still and this is, I think about this, I'm very conscious of this when I'm in the classroom, when I'm teaching workshops, that like I grew up in a creative family and I didn't think that I could draw. I like was very critical of any sort of kind of like creative endeavor. When I was in high school, I'm like, I'm not going to do anything like this. I want to be a journalist. Like, I do not want to go into art. And I also just didn't think I could draw.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, no, I can't draw like my grandma. Like, this is not for me. This is not for me.
Yeah. Her work is that like really luscious, like 40s.
Yes.
Like
she knew how to do like her brush line looks, I mean, it looks mechanical, yet it's all like, but like lovingly mechanical. Like it's that super trained 1940s, 1950s illustration style that also involves like a physical airbrush.
Yeah.
You know, like it's wild. It's wild. And so like, and I remember talking to my grandma, asking her, and again, she's a very amazing, wonderful woman who inspires me every single day. But when I would ask her, like, how do you draw? She would look at me and she'd be like, you just do it. I'm just
that's helpful.
That's not helpful. But for her, it was so
just automatic.
It was automatic. But the thing is that I did take away from her is like, yeah, you do just do it. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You just gotta start building off of that. You've got to just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not going to look like what your grandma's making, but also you've got to remember that when you were asking your grandma how you draw, at this point, she like was 50 years into her career, something that she had been doing every single day since she was 18 years old. Like it was so automatic and so just like a part of her that the beginning part of it is you just start it. You just do it and you build off of that. But that being said, I was like, that's hard. I'm not going to do that. So I had really awful like ACT scores. And my parents, again, I mentioned that they were weavers. It wasn't like they had a huge college fund built up for me. So it was really going to have to rely on scholarships, which I got none. I got zero scholarships because, man, I tried with the ACT. Like Missouri, I don't know.
Those tests are so weird. Yeah.
I had such just lukewarm, not impressive standardized test scores. I had great grades, but I think they might have looked at the grades And then they looked at the test scores and they were just like, something's off here. What's going on? And I got no scholarships, but there was a work study school in Missouri called College of the Ozarks that, again, it was a heavily Christian private school. The population was, I would say, 90% preachers' kids, missionary kids.
A fun group.
Wannabe evangelical preachers. And then kids that had really probably bad SAT scores or ACT scores and were there on a need-based basis. And that was me. They had some mass communication classes there, which I quickly hated and realized that that was a misstep. And then I ended up with a bunch of weirdos in the English program. That was actually great. Like, I had such a weird college experience, and I still do this to this day, where the things that I like to do are very much based on the people that I want to hang out with. And it wasn't that I really wanted to be an English major. It was that I just like being around people and still do, people who want to do things and people who have energy and people who like are excited about stuff. And that's also how I ended up in ceramics.
Yeah.
Because there were
the most exciting art.
And it was because I was like, I'm not going to do art. I can't draw. But I ended up kind of like hanging out with these people who dwelled in this basement ceramic studio. And I thought they're really cool and they listened to great music and they were really fun to be around. So I took a bunch of ceramics classes. Around that time, that's when the art school there started up the graphic design program. And the graphic design professor, looking back, his name is Marcus Melton. He's amazing. He was like 25 when it was his first job. And he was trying to recruit people into his graphic design classes. And it was like really low enrollment. And he was in the ceramic studio and he was like, hey, you should really take graphic design. And I was like, no, because I hate logos and I know that you have to be really clean and look at me, and he was like, no. And he completely like changed the way that I think about things. And
was it one of those things where it was just him and that was the entirety of the graphic design program?
Again, it was really slow. There was like 10 people in the major at the time, and it was just tiny. It was tiny. And again, like this was also like my first design class. It's funny because I absolutely love Letraset. Love it. I use it for all my zine workshops. I use it for my resew workshops. Like I love Letraset. But my first project was actually like doing true like rub down Letraset and I hated it. I was like, this is awful. I can't be this clean. I can't be this neat. And once I was able to use it in an expressive way, it was my favorite sort of thing. But then that's when the computers were slowly being introduced too. So it was like a weird time where my first year of college was fall of 1995. And another big thing for me was because I was an English major, there was this place, it was the Writing Center. The guy who ran the Writing Center is still just like, he was this English professor named Dr. Carmen, who I just absolutely adore. And he basically like handpicked all of the kids that felt like they were misplaced at College of the Ozarks and invited them to work at the Writing Center.
Aww.
And that's where I just met some of the best friends in my life. And I have a Zoom call with Dr. Carmen and my friend Zach, who lives in Portland, Zach Schomburg. And we're gonna hang out with 81-year-old Dr. Carmen.
Had you met Zach Schomburg through Dr. Carmen and that writing center?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I take that back. I met Zach. He was in my SOAR group, Success on the Academic Road. That was our orientation group. And Zach had also wanted to go to the University of Missouri Columbia and the journalism school, but he did not. He ended up at College of the Ozarks too. And we both were just like, what is this place? And we both were in those first couple mass communications classes where like, this is awful. And then Dr. Carmen found both of us. Like he basically was like, come to the Writing Center, be an English major.
I will save you.
Yeah,
please.
No, but seriously, like that's where we like that. I mean, that really does kind of play into this kind of like confluence of design classes, English classes. Again, I was surrounding myself with people that I really like. And I didn't feel like that I was creative. I felt like I had these friends who were really great actors I worked backstage. Like I was like theater. I'm like, I'm going to help you. My friend Will Manning, who I'm still really good friends with, who's an actor in New York City. I was like, I just want to be around you. Let me help you like dress you for these shows that you're in. And so I was like backstage. I was a big like
Your crew.
I was a big crew person. I was just like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. I didn't. And so again, I was like, I want to like make sure that I can assist you talented folks in being as talented as possible. I was very crew for theater. And then for English, like I didn't feel like I was a good writer. I felt like Zach was the writer. Like, oh my God, Zach, your poems are so good. They're so good. More people need to know about these poems. And so I didn't call it a zine because I didn't know what a zine was. But my first like design publication piece was me being like, Zach, more people need to know about your writing. And so I like took his Word files and I like put together a chapbook, basically a zine. And then I asked Dr. Carmen for it was the copier in the business center that was like upstairs from the writing center.
Oh, the fancy one.
Yeah. And so I was like, can I have your copy code? Because I want to make 50 of these books. and it was awful. Like it was the cover of it. It was called 3 Months in a Cult. That was Zach's title. I found like this super pixelated photo. I think it was like of Christopher Lloyd. I don't know, but it was
when I think cults, I definitely think
he was like eating cereal or something. It was like so
all right.
So and then of course you'll like this. Everything was set in a it wasn't Courier, but it was a typewriter font. I think it was American typewriter because I'm like, and then of course like after I had all these like books for Zach, I'm like, we need to like have an event where people can get these things. And that's when actually we started. It was with Dr. Carmen's support. It was called Coffee House, later to be called Symposium. But it was
a bit of an upgrade there on the importance.
And so that's where I basically ran around and got my friends that I thought were making good artwork that they should show, my friends that were writing one-act plays, my friends that were writing songs, and I put together a show.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started making like, I did all like promos and publications. Like we did 12 of these.
Holy shit.
And that right there was when I started feeling like things were like kind of like, this feels good.
Yeah.
Like but I still didn't think I was creative. I just thought I was producing things. I just basically, it's like my contribution to all of my friends that I feel like are doing awesome things. And again, because I was so scattered around, like I was in ceramics, I was in English, I was hanging out, not the graphic design kids, but the graphic art kids, because that's where you could screen print. Like I had those as friends and theater kids. And then it was just like me, like encouraging, antagonizing. Sometimes I feel like maybe borderline bullying people into performing. So, and it had a printed component and then it had these.
This is so hilarious.
But it's so funny though, because it's like Zach and I have talked about this because it's like the things that we were doing when we were 20 are kind of the things that we're doing right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds, if you told me that modern Kate was doing this, I would not, I mean, this is, be honest, basically, be honest, our big like student portfolio show that we put on every year.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what really lit me up, basically. Like that was, but again, I didn't have words for like this being a creative thing. Like I was a mediocre photographer. I was a mediocre writer. I was a mediocre designer. But the thing where it's like, I felt really like excited and comfortable and I felt like I might be good at this was cheerleading excitement and producing an event. And I did that when I was in my early 20s. That and zines are the two things that I'm still doing now. So, yeah.
You are the hype man for the entire design scene.
And I love that though. Like I feel like if I see someone that's doing something that other people need to be paying attention to, I'm a loud person. I want to use my enthusiasm and my loud voice just to point. I've always been like, hey, look at this. Or hey, come over here. Like, come on, let's do this. And I really like being an enthusiast. that's kind of where I feel like I got my sea legs, I guess, at being a enthusiast for other people and places and things. And that was those coffee houses and symposiums. But again, that's also where it's like, and I dug out some of the flyers that I had made for symposium and coffee house. And like, that's the beginnings of a lot of kind of my love for DIY design. Like, that's where I felt I spent my entire first year in the graphic design program trying to avoid the computer. And so I did a lot of like cut and paste. I did a lot of paper mache. I really put out way more energy and effort in avoiding the computer.
If there had been a way to use a kiln to do graphic design, would you have done it?
I would have. But one of my very first graphic design projects, it was a total graphic design one thing where you had to like pick a vegetable and then you had to, in 9 different like 3x3 squares, like represent it in 9 different ways.
Oh, sure. The vegetable medley.
I picked an avocado. One of those 9 squares, it ended up being a giant paper mache costume called Avery.
Hold on.
Avery the avocado.
Gonna need to back up. Avery the avocado, this is a costume. Is this a full-size costume?
Yes, I have photos of this too.
Okay, well now I'm gonna need to see those too. Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to use Photoshop basically. And I wanted to, I built this giant costume, Avery the avocado. My friend Tony dressed up as Avery and we went around we went around the campus educating people on avocados. And I did the thing
Why? I thought that wasn't even part of it.
I thought it'd be fun. And it was also one of those things too, where Marcus, my professor, was like, I don't want you to personify the fruit. And I'm like, okay, you tell me that you don't want me to do something, and then I'm going to do the thing.
That's only going to give you hunger.
That gives me hunger. And so I was like, I not only personified the avocado, I like turned it into a whole dang deal. And it was great. That really, I think that project right there though, like that extra additional step of taking Avery out of the design classroom and having this thing that I designed just go around and talk to people and engage with people who have no idea of what I was doing. Like being, and I think that's also why, if I'm like thinking about this, like, I think it's really important that students see how their design impacts people.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the
like vegetable medley.
Exactly. Like I really want people to see the thing that they're making, how it engages with the environment or engages with the people that they're designing for. Granted, I wasn't designing the avocado for like the people who had to talk to Avery. They were very confused. They did, but it was.
You had
fun.
A very specific audience for this project, which was Marcus, and he explicitly told you not to do this.
And that was just me because it's also you tell me to specifically not do something, and I will specifically try to do that thing. But he loved it, so it was just like, I don't know.
So, Kate, you're at College of the Ozarks.
Yes.
You are getting deep.
Yes.
Into the world of graphic design. You've built the
Paper
avocado
mache,
conceptually and physically.
Raku firing, you know.
Of course. All the things. I definitely know what the last one was.
Ceramics.
Oh.
Very dramatic trash can. Like you set things on fire and you get like really cool glazes and things like that.
You had me at very dramatic trash can.
Yes.
So you, in working in graphic design, you kind of found your way to an actual graphic design job. Where in your career was the story that we're about to hear?
Oh, well, this happened I was still at school.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier too, like I'm like hanging out with the English people and the display people and the art people. And I know like I had at least like 2 graphic design classes under my belt at this time. So, I was like super good.
An expert.
I also wrote for the newspaper too. So I was hanging out with the newspaper people where I realized quickly, because the newspaper at the time, everything was laid out in PageMaker, aka RageMaker. And I hated it. I hated it. They tried to get me to do design stuff there. And I was like, no, I will write for you. I'm not going to deal with like PageMaker. No. But however, my friend Zach and my friend Riley, I think, they were editors of the Gordian Knot, which is the I know, which is that was the school literary magazine. And because I had laid out some of Zach's chapbooks and I was the person who had the 2 graphic design classes under their belt, they asked if I would be the designer for the Gordian Knot. And they actually had a budget. So this was like a real printed piece. However, I couldn't do this on a photocopier. I couldn't I had to like set up actual files. I had to like lay out text and like figure out a grid. And I was bad at all of those things. I had learned at Quark Express because InDesign did not exist. It was Quark Express. I did not like Quark Express.
No one did.
But I decided that I was going to lay out this book in Illustrator, which, as we all know, listening to this, that Illustrator is not a page layout program.
Really?
I don't know if you knew that, Sean, but
I wouldn't have guessed that from the name.
I know. Adobe Illustrator should not ever be used to lay out multiple pages.
You don't say.
And even in 1998, Adobe Illustrator didn't even have the capabilities to do multiple artboards.
Yeah, you just had one
I do have to tell you,
page,
Sean,
essentially.
Illustrator is my favorite program in 2021. And
Ride or die Illustrator.
Ride or die Illustrator. And I lay out all my presentation decks in Illustrator. I actually don't use real type. I use illustrated type and images. And so that way, yes, in 2021.
You have a proper reason for it.
I have a proper reason for it. But in 1998, I had no business doing this.
No, no one did.
Because every single page was a separate file.
For the listener, I teach page layout, and what Kate just said made me die. I'm dead now. So that's going to color the rest of this recording.
And I just like, we did have a faculty advisor. I just really wish that the faculty advisor was like literally even an ounce engaged in what it is that we were doing.
In this Gordian knot of bad idea magazine.
Like, because I also, though, because even though I wanted to because as you can tell, I could do whatever I want. I'm like, we're laying it out in Illustrator.
During the break, you were telling me about how you took over essentially multiple rooms at the school.
I did. But I also, instead of the format for years and years prior was just a very simple, like 8.5 by 11, fold over, send it to print, we're done. Sometimes it was perfect bound, whatever.
Oh, fancy.
I, at the time, was going through a very, very, very hardcore love of Belle and Sebastian, which I still love them very much.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I really wanted the Gordian knot to be square, like a record cover.
Oh, and just like all books.
All books should be square.
Should be. Such a good shape for a book.
And I also wanted to take one of my black and white photographs and turn it into a red duotone, just like, I think it's If You're Feeling Sinister. I think that's, yeah. And so everyone else thought that was a good idea too. So
set some Clarendon on there, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Except I set Courier on there, not Clarendon.
Your first love.
Yeah, my first love, Courier. And I set the entire book in Courier. I had, I think, maybe some elements where I faded back the Courier to like 70%.
Whoa.
I know. It created some depth. It's so ugly. And there's no, like, I eyeballed a grid on every single page. I made up a new grid for every single document. And then you can take this book, which got printed, you can take this book and you can flip the corner where the page numbers are. And it's like your added bonus is that you get this like animated flip book of page numbers.
Just kind of dancing around.
They just all dance around because there was no grid that they were a part of.
So you're also not duplicating each of these pages to make the new page. How many centuries did it take you to lay out this book?
I have to say, it's like this definitely fell into the category of working harder, not smarter.
Yeah.
And again, I just really wish that there was any sort of like outside supervision, not just for like the design, but just even the content as well. Because I dug it out the other day and I was reading all of the submitted bios. Horrible. I mean, that's just like, it's just because I understand it's hard to write a bio. It's hard to write. I mean, we do this in our portfolio class. We want to make sure at least we give some sort of guidelines. Okay, it's me first person, it's me third person. We're going to have an editor for this. We're going to try to help it like give you a word count so someone doesn't submit something that's like 300 words long and then someone doesn't submit something that's like, my name is Kate. That's like my bio. And so, but this is
my name is Rectangle.
Yeah, and this is exactly, and I was just like, this whole thing is awful.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy that I still have it. And it got printed and a lot of them were printed. And I also wish someone had pulled me aside and said, you might not want to use red as your duotone because this looks like a murder book.
I was going to say.
It looks so
If
sinister.
you're feeling sinister, I think chose that color
not
for
the Gordian knot.
For a reason.
I know. It's awful. It's awful. My other big traumatic design job was also a publication.
Really?
That I had to, it was one of my, it was an offset print job that it was a catalog for a big national book arts show that I designed when I was in grad school. And I had this giant paper debacle. I spec'd the wrong paper. The entire thing got printed on the wrong paper. Like it was such a mess. It was such, and then I also thought it was a great idea that we would hand make all the covers for this 1,000.
Oh no.
I know. So that was bad. I feel like that was, I was just like,
that seems so much harder than the other one. Like
I enlisted friends.
Had you just felt really ambitious after finishing the Gordian knot and just like
there was about 6 years in between these two
Oh, really?
things. Yeah. So I think I just had forgotten. But at that I did use InDesign in this one. Because InDesign existed at that point. In 2002, it existed. So
it wasn't good, but it also still isn't good.
It still isn't good.
You know, they introduced new slowness with each version. So that's something.
Still, like, every time I open InDesign, I just want to cry a little. I lay out all my zines in InDesign now. But I still
the listener can't see, but there's a tear running down Kate's face as she's saying
I
this.
Still like scream to the gods, like you have one job in design. Why do you make it so difficult to print a book? Like, why do I have to do this like roundabout when I have to imposition pages? Like, you have one job. I don't get it.
It is hard though. Like, I mean, like to think about like my experience laying out like my first publication. Well, my very first publication in school, ironically enough, was our BFA catalog. And I think no one had bothered to tell me that was my job until about, if I recall, it was the day before it was supposed to be sent to press.
Oh my God.
So it was just me and two people that I knew who were just like sitting in the computer lab being like, we got to throw this thing together as fast as possible.
Man.
But like my literary journal, if that is even the right term for that publication, like we had so much money to work with, and that was a school that was like otherwise like we were essentially in a decrepit motel as our art building.
That sounds really cool.
I mean, as long as you didn't need to use the bathroom ever,
then you're fine.
Or go outside, which it was impossible to not do. Because it was motel format. It's a fine place. It was so weird and it didn't make any sense. And I think I was so scared of that project.
Yeah. But I think that's also though too, I feel like well, I mean, you think about the roles that we play now, Sean. Yeah. I mentioned several times, like, where was the adult?
Where was anyone?
Where was anyone? And I don't feel like you and I art direct things. I don't feel like we put our like agenda, but we are definitely there to make sure that someone doesn't lay a book out in Illustrator. And we are definitely there to hopefully make something that seems really scary, not scary. That
Yeah.
we're there to like assist and make the process feel doable.
Yeah, and to help people understand that, like, and to get back to the reason for this podcast existing, that like you cannot do anything in this field without having to accept that you're going to hit like failure, failure,
Yeah.
failure. And one of those failures maybe is going to turn into something, but otherwise you have to keep powering through it
Yeah.
and figuring out like what the next like meat is that you can grab onto.
Well, and I think again that goes
I'm
back to
imagining
just
climbing up a giant, I guess.
I like that. But I think
Yeah.
that I think that also just goes back to like where initially like my grandma telling me that you just draw, Katie. But it's like you kind of do. You have to, but the conditions have to be right in order for you just like, I'm just gonna dive in, I'm just gonna try this, I'm gonna keep doing it, I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep doing it, I'm gonna keep doing it. And it's gonna suck. I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes. But hopefully, the good outweighs the bad and the wins keep you moving forward. And a lot of the things that I did when I was in school, I don't think are very good at all. But
Yeah.
the things that I learned from that stuff, I'm still applying to things today.
What would you say is your favorite thing that you made when you were in school?
When I was in school?
Yeah.
My favorite thing that I made when I was in school, it wasn't a school project. It wasn't a school project. And I think that's also, and I think my favorite thing, if I look back at me being my English major, ceramic class taking, graphic design major, self, like the best thing that I did was make those symposiums and coffee shops happen. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I'm so like committed, encouraging to making sure that students at Portland State like start workshops, like do extracurricular, like it's the things that happen outside of the classroom, I think are the things that you really, really kind of like learn from too.
Yeah. And I think like we really see, I mean, I know in my undergrad, we didn't really have a culture of like, hanging out because it was a commuter school. I had to drive 40 minutes each way to get to school every day. Uphill both ways somehow. I think it actually was
and
uphill
snow
both ways.
in Las Vegas. It's crazy.
It did sometimes. It just is weird when it happens and no one knows how to deal with it. Like I feel like we get to see so many people who are just like learning not as much even from us as they are from each other.
Exactly.
And like, it sounds like there was just a ton of that happening for you, like in all those informal spaces.
Yes. But I also know too, that like Dr. Carmen, who was in charge of the writing center, he like cooked that up. Like
this was a scheme of his.
This was a scheme of his. Like he knew, because he had worked at College of the Ozarks since the 1970s. And during the 1970s, it was a much more progressive, kind of almost like a utopian hippie,
like the back
school.
to the land kind of thing.
And then in the 1990s, that's when they got a super conservative president. And he's still the president to this day. Dr. Jerry Davis. And he really, like, that's when, I mean, Dr. Jerry Davis is a talking head on Fox and Friends. I'm not even kidding you. I'm not even kidding you.
Lovely.
And Dr. Carmen no longer works at College of the Ozarks because he's retired now, but like he left. I feel like the mid 90s was when a lot of the instructors, professors that were there in the 70s, they either got fired or they just quit. And so it was kind of like, I feel like Carmen's mission agenda was to basically save the kids that he felt like were that needed. I mean, we were saved in a different way, I guess.
You went to Christian school and you got saved. I think that's the thesis of this.
True.
Yeah,
that's true. But I mean, the environment was really. It's so funny because it's, again, my friend Zach, who is in Portland with me, like, even though we've been out of school for 20 some years, it was such a weird environment that we still can't stop talking about it. Like we had these required convocations that we had to go to, and
Like
this,
weekly or
yeah,
oh.
yeah. But it was like we had Exodus International, which is the Pray the Gay Away people
Oh
come to
no.
campus. And I mean, it was just like things like that where like we're just like, what the hell is going on? And so these teachers that they made these safe spaces
Yeah.
for us, basically. We weren't censored in these symposiums. We weren't censored in these coffee shops. We could express ourselves in any way that we wanted to. We were very much off the grid, off the radar of the college administration. And I feel like Carmen really worked hard to protect us in that way too.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I feel like his role as, I think I only took like one class from him, but he was such a transformative presence as a teacher that is something that I carry with me as a teacher today. Cause I truly feel that like as a teacher, like now I'm going into I had my first class in the fall of 2001. So this is like my
This is properly
20th
20.
year, proper
Yeah.
20, because this is also my first week of school was 9/11. Like that was like,
Oh,
because I was a first year
no.
grad student. I had my own class, and I remember like it was 8:46 in the morning. It was my type 1 class. Like,
Wait, you were literally starting on 9/11.
yeah, I had a week of class I've had. So this is like my third class that I had with them.
Oh no.
And I just remember it was very, anyway, not to go down that, but so it's been 20 years. It's not like you go to school for teaching when you
God no.
teach at a university. You don't.
No.
You don't.
They don't give you a lot of intel.
They don't give you, and like some grad schools might have a pedagogy class. The one that I went to did not. Like basically the way that I learned how to teach was to teach in honor towards the good experiences that I had in the classroom and to teach against the bad experiences that I had in the classroom. And that's what I've been doing ever since, basically. And so like Carmen, I don't think he really kind of like laid a good blueprint for me about what it means to support your students, protect your students, let your students experiment, let them try like the most ridiculous things but also be like a little bit like also hands off too, but also still very aware of what is going on.
Yeah.
And I've like he is just someone that I have always carried with me, and I'm really excited I was messaging with him on Facebook because he posted on my wall. He posted on my wall as he was like, what's up with Zach? I haven't heard from him in a while. And I was like, hey, and I said, do you want to do a Zoom with me and Zach? And we're going to do that next Sunday afternoon. So yeah, he's a good guy.
That's very sweet. Kate.
Yeah, Sean.
Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Let me think. Well,
I can't imagine that someone who mainly does event type things would have anything at all coming up.
We're doing in-person workshops again at Outlet.
At Outlet. So Outlet is your other
Outlet is
PSU is not enough to contain all of your creative
really
energy.
Like also too, like Outlet is something. Outlet started as my studio about 4 years ago. But it was really kind of more of like a public studio where I also did like events. But it's quickly turned into a risograph print business and a studio and a workshop space.
It was a very natural, slow evolution.
Also has a big zine library.
Yeah.
Like it's Zach teaches classes out of there every once in a while. Like
you've got a whole lot of stuff for sale in there too.
Yeah,
like,
I do. It's
really lovely greeting cards.
It's
and
a
whole.
There's no paper mache avocado, although there is a giant paper mache Cheeto pinata that's hanging in there that my former student and current friend Tina Snowlee gave me for my birthday several years ago.
So unfortunately, it's gotten less healthy as the years have gone.
Yeah, avocados like no, it's all Cheetos. But we just started doing in-person workshops again after doing virtual workshops for the last 50 years, it feels like. But we did we're still doing virtual workshops because that's been really great.
Yeah, and probably excellent if there are folks that are interested in learning about the weird magic that is the risograph outside of Portland.
And I do have to say, we did our first in-person workshop last Saturday, and I was like, how do these go? How do we teach in person again? And at the end of the 3 hours, I felt like I was on like the best drugs. It was so good. And we had another in-person workshop yesterday. And again, that feeling was, I'm like, now I'm just like chasing that high.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how long, if that's going to wear off or I just love it. And it makes me really excited to have IRL interactions with our students again too. I know that's going to be slow going, but it really makes me excited. I feel like teaching online has been fine, but it's also, I've been missing the sizzle. I've been missing the magic that being in a space creates. I got a little taste of that last Saturday, and I am like, I just forgot how good it felt. It felt so good. And I can't wait for that again. I can't.
If people want to learn more about Outlet, where can they find it?
Outletpdx.com. If you are on the Instagram, it's outletpdx.
Wow.
Yeah.
Premier landing page.
I know, right? Right.
Thank you for listening to Did I Do That? Which is definitely, again, the name of this show, and it hasn't changed at all. And if you heard any references to maybe any other names, that was just a ghost. That was a ghost that was whispering it to you. Maybe that's what the show Ghost Whisperer is about. I haven't seen it. But if you enjoyed this show, tell a friend wherever they are. If they're trapped in the cybersphere, well, maybe try to get them out. Like, I think they would appreciate that. It's probably pretty bad in there, just knowing kind of the internet in general. But once they get out, maybe they would enjoy the listen to this good sentence. Yeah. Maybe they would enjoy hearing this show. So tell them about it. I would give them a minute, maybe like give them a towel or something, or just like a little, some breathing room, maybe like a cookie and some juice. So tell a friend about this bad show where I say things like that. Maybe give us a thumbs up or a star field or a whatever it is that your podcast platform uses, the highest one attainable. I think it's 5 stars on most, but I have been surprised before. So if you do that, I will appreciate it. It also helps get the word out about the show. If you want to learn more, check out the show notes. But you can also check out the new website that this show has, which is dididothat.design. And you can go from there. I'm Sean Schumacher, and this is Did I Do That? A show that is definitely not. Oh, God. I got to start coming up with these beforehand. This is not the way to do it. Jesus. Okay. Goodbye.
Because that was when I actually a lot of these things have been like, oh, this was fun. This was a happy accident. Oh, this wasn't. But this was where I was just like, this isn't good.
This is where things went off the rails.
Because it involved a computer. Couldn't get around it.
It's hard to make books just freehand.
I do it now.
Unless you're a monk, or you now.